What's up, you guys? It's Layla Lynn, and I'm back with another video. In this video, I want to talk about the David Celeste Rivas Hernandez case being blown wide open. This case is now wide open. This guy, SF Investigate, Steve Fisher, is smoking them out. He's smoking them out. And so before we get into this interview that he did two interviews, one with Ashley Banfield and one with Jesse Weber. And in these interviews, he revealed that he knows who was driving the Tesla when it reached its final parking spot, its alleged final parking spot. He's saying that he knows who was driving it. But I want to start with this tweet from October 9th when he specifically asked a person. Now, this person, I did not include their information on this tweet because I don't want people going to their social media unnecessarily. And so, for privacy reasons, I did not include their handle or their identity. This is someone close to David who made a statement on their social media. And they said, you know what? I have put myself in solitude. I am not in contact with people. And when I'm ready to speak, I will. Stephen Fisher asked them, did you drive this Tesla? He said, I hope this statement is true. It would be nice for someone to finally talk, someone that is close to some of the people being mentioned publicly. If I could ask a question, I would ask him if he's ever driven that Tesla in the couple months before it was towed. It's just a question, not an accusation. Now, this was on October 9th, and apparently he didn't get an answer because he went and did interviews saying that he knows who drove the Tesla. And so that tells me that on October 9th, when he asked this question as gentle and polite as he could, it told me he's not looking for the answer. He's looking to see if this person is going to be honest because he knows who drove the Tesla. He saw on video who drove the Tesla to its alleged final parking spot. And so we're going to get into this interview he did, and we're going to break it down because I feel like he let some things slip. I'm not sure if he meant to let them slip, but he let some things slip that revealed he knows a lot more than what he's sharing, and that this case is being broken wide open.
That and I'll tell you that there have been things that we've learned that, and we've turned right over to LAPD, but we think there's significant things that could help.
Now, I want to do a little bit of body language reading. Like he's giving you almost like, I'm embarrassed to say this. If you look how he rolls his eyes up when he's speaking, sometimes he shrugs his shoulders like, I can't believe I have to say this. And it's given that either he is holding back a lot of information or he is trying to present himself as very innocent, very unassuming, as someone. If someone in David's circle wanted to come talk to, they could come talk to him because he is not aggressive. Like he's holding back aggression. Just look at his body language.
And I'll tell you that there have been things that we've learned that, and we've turned right over to LAPD, but we think there's significant, things that could help.
Yeah.
Do you mean that there might be evidence that a crime was committed at that house?
Not so much a crime, no. And I'll just be honest with you. We don't have any evidence that anything happened to Celeste at that house, but there's definitely evidence that we've collected that helps the timeline. We now have a much better understanding of when that Tesla arrived at that final parking spot. I'll tell you, I do have surveillance from different houses in the neighborhood showing the Tesla being moved. So things like that, and I'm not even saying that LAPD didn't have that. I'm sure they did, but we wanted to make sure, and we did some work and on the up-resing the footage to find out who was driving the.
So they up-res the footage, meaning they increase the resolution of the footage so that they can see more clearly who was driving the Tesla. Because as he says, he knows who was driving the Tesla. He could see their face once he up-res the footage. That is such important information here. I showed you guys a tweet where he was asking a particular person, did they drive it? And he asked them that already knowing who was driving it. He asked them that to see if they were ready to talk.
The things that we've recovered, we've given to LAPD within 24 hours,
Do you know?
This guy is flabbergasted. The question he's about to ask is a question that blows the case wide open, and he can hardly get it out. He is flabbergasted.
Do you know who was driving that car, that Tesla? You don't have to tell me, but do you know the identity?
Yeah, as far as it going to the final, that what we believe is the final parking spot where it was towed from, yes.
And that information's been communicated.
That's the key. That is blowing everything wide open. He is saying, like he said, he upres the footage. So he knows who allegedly drove the car to its alleged final parking spot. And again, everything I'm saying in this video is alleged. I am not making accusations. What I am doing is dissecting the information in front of me and putting it together, and it's all alleged.
Communicated to law enforcement.
So it's been given to law enforcement. They're not going to tell us if they're confirming if that's a person or not. Robbery, homicide, the way they work is we'll take your information. We're not going to speak on it, so I don't know. But listen, it's very clear that that neighborhood is filled with surveillance cameras, and the timelines, once we learn those dates and we can see other things that were happening that were even public on Instagram and whatnot, were going on in those people's lives, it makes a lot of sense.
So when he talks about Instagram, he did 2 interviews. The other one was with Ashley Banfield, and he talked more about Instagram there. What he was saying is that the person was wearing the same clothing on Instagram as when they moved the car. So again, when I say this case is being blown wide open, they're seeing people in the same clothing as when they allegedly committed an alleged crime.
So let me ask you this. If you see when the car was parked there, have you seen anything to indicate that Celeste's body was transferred into that car after the car was parked there? Or in other words, do you believe that her body was in that?
Look, even when the guy's asking the question, and like I said, this investigator, it's like he's holding back. You can even see the way he's moving his lips. Like when someone has something to say and they're trying not to say it, they'll literally purse their lips to try to keep it in. And so when this guy's asking him these pointed questions, it's like before he answers, he literally holds in what he really wants to say.
To indicate that Celeste's body was transferred into that car after the car was parked there? Or in other words, do you believe that her body was in that car the minute it was parked in the location it was ultimately towed from?
So I'll say I have no evidence of a body being transferred before or after. There's no evidence of that at all. What I will say, when it was moved to that position, it was already like that. So that car had not been used in a very long time. It was super dirty, caked on dirt. I'll tell you, this was in late July. So it's bizarre because we also got media that the car was used a lot. David even spoke about it in Instagram videos. He took it to a detail shop and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, the very beginning of the year, that car, something happens, and that car's doesn't show up anymore. It's not used. It seems to disappear. And then that red Tesla learned, which we didn't know until the search warrant was served, that there's a red Tesla in the garage.
So he is establishing a new timeline. I know a lot of people believe, from everything we've seen so far, you would think that Celeste was unalive at the end of July, but he is establishing this timeline of February, like earlier in the year, late January, earlier February, where she may have been unalive and her body may have been kept in the Tesla for all of these months. That is what it seems like he is establishing, that timeline. And on Reddit, there are former fans of David who have posted how David did have 2 apartments. He had this apartment in the Hollywood Hills, this condo, but then he had a separate apartment that he put up, that he ended the lease in March. And they are saying he ended that lease in March of this year, 2025, because that was Celeste's apartment. Celeste didn't live in the home in the Hollywood Hills. Because she was underage, David was careful. This is all alleged. They're alleging that David was careful and that he had her in a different apartment down the street towards downtown Hollywood, and that apartment lease ended and it went up for lease again in March because he allegedly no longer needed it. My God.
And the car's doesn't show up anymore. It's not used. It seems to disappear. And then that red Tesla learned, which we didn't know until the search warrant was served, that there's a red Tesla in the garage, which I can tell you was at least on February 1st. So
that's when the black Tesla was no longer being driven and the red Tesla was leased February 1st.
Let me just narrow down here. Do you have the precise date of when that car, the one with the Tesla, with Celeste's body inside, when it was left there? Do you know the specific date of when it was left in Hollywood Hills?
I believe so. I believe it, July, late July.
So you can tell he's holding back. In the other interview with Ashley Banfield, I believe he said 29th, like he said the date. But in this interview, you can see he's holding back by his body language, and he just says late July.
I believe so. I believe it, July, late July, very late July, very late July.
Did you see anyone coming into or leaving that property after the Tesla was there? So after the Tesla with Celeste's body inside is there, can you tell us you saw people coming in and out of that property before before the search warrant?
No, not from the time that the Tesla was left. So from the time the Tesla was left there, he literally immediately started the tour. There was a tour bus that was leased, and I'll tell you that Tesla.
Okay. So there are two takeaways from what he's saying. He's saying that, as soon as the Tesla was left, he immediately started the tour. That's what we hear on the surface. But I also want you guys to pay attention to pronouns. Whenever he's talking about David, he doesn't say David's name. He just says he. He uses that specific pronoun he to refer to David. When he is talking about the person who allegedly drove the Tesla to its alleged final parking spot, he uses the pronoun they. He says they. He is using they for anonymity, but when he talks about David, he lets it slip, and he always says he when he refers to David. So keep that in mind, that it sounds like he's talking about two different people when he talks about who moved the Tesla and then who went on tour.
Time the Tesla was left there, he literally immediately started the tour. There was a tour bus that was leased, and I'll tell you that Tesla was moved and literally a bus departed for tour.
During the course of your investigation so far, have you learned more information about Celeste and David, perhaps their connection, anything we should be thinking about that hasn't been publicly reported? Is your investigation also into them as well?
Sure. Yeah. And one of the reasons that we kind of come public with what I'm doing is because, I have a little bit different method of working than a lot of private investigators, and then what people think is the proper way of doing it. I believe in this digital age, and especially the younger generation, when they're on places like Discord and you don't even know their real identities, I put myself out there, and those people do come to me.
And let me say this while we're here. This is not Celeste. This live video and these pictures you see of this girl with the glasses, like he has like decoys, like fake Celeste. Her name is Celeste, but it's not Celeste Rivas. I believe it's Herrera. It's a different Celeste that they just keep mixing in the photos. Like he really had people fooled.
Tremendous amount of people have come to me, and I've learned a lot. Now, listen, a lot of it's circumstantial, right? But there are people that are directly in his orbit, and there are people that have photos and videos, and we've gotten a lot of photos and videos from inside the home itself. So you can put people at certain dates and times at the house, and there's a lot of them. It's in the thousands.
Do you know if Celeste was ever at that property?
So, what we recovered, we don't have any of her at that property. We have pictures of her and that were taken by David, we assume, because it's not on a camera phone, but these photos are on a regular camera at different.
If y'all caught that, he said the photos David would take of Celeste, they weren't on his phone, like his iPhone or his Samsung or what have you. It was on a regular camera, like a DSLR camera. And what that tells me, like I said, is David is being very careful. She doesn't live with him. She lives separately. He doesn't take pictures of her, who was underage, on his phone. He uses an actual camera. And he revealed the last time he took a picture, Stephen Fisher says, was January 2nd. That was the last time David allegedly photographed Celeste alive in 2025. And that's why this new timeline is headed into January, February of 2025, as far as when her life was tragically taken. Now, as far as what he said about doing things differently, I really appreciate that, because it's a lot of kids. It's a lot of minors involved in the situation. And sometimes when minors come out and they say this and say that, they're not believed. But what he is saying is basically he will believe them. And there have been reports of other underage girls sending in their text messages with allegedly David. We don't know if it's David for sure, but they're saying allegedly this was David trying to get with them. And so what he is saying is that he's open to receiving all of that information from people who may be underage. They may have been anonymous on Discord. He is open to receiving their information. I think that's so important.
Different locations, and it really makes me think that it's likely she had another place she was staying. I can tell you that there was a lot of time spent towards downtown LA, and I'll say the last photo that we have of Celeste.
And even when I'm listening to this, like I said, I do like a bit of body language analysis or just language analysis. And even when he says LA, the way his downtown LA, the way his voice breaks, it's like he knows about this alleged apartment in downtown LA that David's fans also seem to know about.
It's likely she had another place she was staying. I can tell you that there was a lot of time spent towards downtown LA. And I'll say the last photo that we have of Celeste is January 2nd, 2025.
Has anyone, and just to be clear, you don't know more information about when she died, right?
No,
okay.
I don't have any information of how she died or when exactly she died. Listen, investigations are always moving. And right now I tend to believe it happened a while ago, a long time ago. And I think January, February, things change. I mean, you can see it in the photos and everything. And I also think when I first started looking at this case, I'm very much
So that's what I was saying about him establishing this new timeline, January, February. And January, February, David's former fans are making their own timeline. So when it comes to January, February and their timeline, again, February is when the red Tesla is rented. February is when he releases the music video, One More Dance. I believe it's February 3rd. I'm going to do an analysis of that video because I feel like that video, even though all his videos are kind of about unaliving this girl, that one in particular has a lot in there. So I'm going to do an analysis of that video. But that is also February 2nd is when he posted allegedly him washing sneakers that fans allege belong to Celeste. He was washing sneakers in this video, and fans are saying those were Celeste sneakers. They've matched up photos of Celeste to those sneakers, February 2nd. And that's also, when we talk about February, that's also when he started promoting these shirts, these bloody collared shirts that he started selling. It all goes back to February 2025. It's so disturbing.
Occam's razor type person where I think things are a lot easier than people try to make them sometimes, especially online, into these big things. And I thought this was going to be a tragic overdose, which it very well still could be. And they made a bad decision because they didn't want to expose a potential relationship and put her in this Tesla. And then maybe he thought he could get somebody to get rid of that car. And they were just like, no, I'm not doing it. And just got left there. But I will say this, there are some things that, and I'm talking physical evidence that was at that house that is, there could have been greater plans as far as getting rid of her. And it's scary, the sadistic stuff. And that's why we're trying to look.
First of all, he's abandoning this theory. There was this theory that maybe she OD'd, and because of her age, either David or the people around David allegedly tried to hide her body. He's abandoning that theory, which I think is it's necessary at this point. If they were just planning to bury her body, like let's say she accidentally OD'd and they were planning to bury her body, I don't think he would have used the word sadistic. And I don't think there would have been a timeline allegedly from February until the end of July. I don't think there would have been that large gap. I think it would have been a quick disposal. But the fact that he's using the word sadistic and given this timeline of her allegedly being unalive in February, it's like letting these people, letting this circle know that he's onto them and he knows this was not an accident.
Learn more about that. I wish I could say more, but for obvious reasons I can't. But it doesn't have to do with how she died, but maybe how they were planning on ultimately getting rid of her, and how maybe that Tesla was just a holding spot at the time, and things just, their timing was just off as far as getting this done. But there's a few things that were just like, will blow your mind.
And those things, you can see how he is seemingly tight-lipped. And I don't even want to say them from what I picture. It's not something to say out loud. And it's not something usual, like a burial. It's very unusual and very sadistic.
Because that's another thing that they could be key in this, is that there's only one key to that house, and who had that and who had access to it and who was in it. Because we also have evidence that while David was on tour at the time between the Tesla being found and the search warrant being served, David was on tour, but somebody was in that house. And there was actually a report made, not with police, but that homeowner association has a robust private security company, and we've gotten videos from them and reports. And so who had that key is probably the same person that, had access to the Tesla.
Do you know who that person?
Well, again, when we talk about the body language, how he moves his body, like, I don't know, but it's really given he does know, and he's keeping it to himself. Like he's holding back information. He's holding back aggression, but his moves, like I said, tweeting people in particular, social media, going on to say, I know who moved the car. Like his moves are aggressive. This is about to come to an end. He's exposing information. He's trying to smoke people out, but it's given. If you don't say something, I'm going on national television. It's going to get bigger. So I'm going to stop right here because there's a statement he makes. I don't want to get into analyzing that statement because I think he's making that statement for a reason, because he still wants this person and these people, he wants them to come out on their own. So y'all leave a comment. Let me know your thoughts and your theories. And I will see you guys in the next video. On my backup channel is where I'm going to analyze the music video, One Last Dance.